Can I open them?
All right. Now.
All right. Now, to start off, I want you to read these books. All of them? That, my boy, is a mountain of knowledge.
I checked this out weeks ago for a bit of light reading.
This is light.
Consider this your passport to the wonderful and quite unpredictable world of books.
Da, 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 da. Who hasn't heard of this story? Seriously. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I taught a group of 7th graders last year that had not heard of Ebenezer Scrooge. I was like, what? Uncultured swine! But it's to be expected nowadays. People don't read anymore. People don't pay attention to things that are on TikTok or YouTube. So I thought I'd do my part and raise awareness for a lot of the best books out there. So that's why I've done this Looks at Books series. Christmas Carol is up there with the classics. It's one of the most iconic stories there's ever been. Obviously the most iconic Christmas story besides, the actual nativity. But Ebenezer Scrooge and Tiny Tim, these characters, they've transcended literature and gone into the zeitgeist ever since this book came out. He released this, it's a novella. He released it in 1843. Charles Dickens, this is his most well-known work besides like Oliver Twist and Tale of Two Cities. We can list off Great Expectations. What's another one? Pickwick Papers. David Copperfield. The list goes on and on and on. This guy was one of the most prolific writers that England ever produced. And he wrote this book to raise awareness, really, of the harsh working conditions of the time, and to bring back the Christmas spirit, which he felt had been lost, in the whole commercialization of Christmas. This was a passion project for him, really, and he released it just in time for Christmas. It was released on December 19th of 1843, just in time for Christmas. He was scrambling. It's dramatized in the movie The Man Who Invented Christmas. His whole conception of the book and the release. It was popular immediately because the story is just so well told and it's so well structured. Because he structures the book into staves instead of chapters. The staves are the units of a carol, of a Christmas carol. And right from the beginning, we get this grumpy old character, Scrooge, who's running this money lending house by himself since his partner died 7 years before, to the day. This starts off on Christmas Eve. And Scrooge is at his counting house talking to his clerk, who's Bob Cratchit, this guy who has a passel of kids. He's got like 4 or 5 kids. He's married and he's got a bunch of kids. And this one here, Tiny Tim, is disabled. His legs, there's something wrong with his leg. It's not made entirely clear what's wrong with him. We just know that he's having trouble walking and he's sickly, because the wife asked him, like, how was he at church today? And she doesn't mean just his behavior, but like, was he coughing, that kind of thing. And Cratchit tells her, as good as rain, I think he said something like that. So we get some glimpse into the family life, but that comes later after. Okay, you probably know the story already. I might just run down the story like bullet points. What happens? The very first chapter. Scrooge goes home from work, and he's visited by Marley's ghost, his old partner's ghost. So he goes to his house, and the knocker on the door takes the form of Marley's face for a minute and says, "Scrooge!" He doesn't, and he's completely, like, in disbelief, you know, like, I'm seeing things, you know. So he goes to eat his Christmas dinner. He's sitting there, and Marley actually walks into the room. He's this ghost with chains and ledgers and boxes all wrapped around him. Tells him, "This is going to be you. If you don't change your life right now, this is going to be you. You're going to have to wander the earth like this with a huge chain. Your chain is going to be even bigger than mine. And this chain I forged in life." Scrooge is, what do you mean? Well, all the things you've done, the people you've hurt from being so greedy, so covetous. This is how you're going to end up if you don't get your act together right now. So Scrooge is like horrified, but he's still not kind of believing what he's seeing. He's like, a little thing may change the senses, you know, but the food I've eaten, like the beef, or an undone potato, might change the senses, you know. But Marley, he's still trying to persuade him to change that. He's telling him, like, I've done this for you. Okay, I've come back for you. To give you this chance. All right, I have enlisted other spirits to help you change your ways. So he tells them, you're going to be visited by 3 spirits tonight. Before this night is over, you're going to see the past, present, and the future through these 3 spirits. So Scrooge goes to bed again, and at 1 o'clock, he's visited by the ghost of Christmas past, usually represented as like a little kid-looking character with a candle stopper. It's like this big old horn-looking thing to put out candles with, you know. And Scrooge is shown. First, he's shown his old schoolhouse, you know, where he'd sit alone and learn his trade, you know, to become a moneylender, to become a banker. And all the while, like, all the other kids are out playing in the snow. You know, it's Christmas break. Like, they're out playing and he's inside working instead of, you know, enjoying his childhood. So he robs himself of his own childhood. And we get some glimpse into his family life. Like, his sister, Fan, says that, you know, father's not nearly as harsh as he used to, as bad as he used to be. You know, like, letting us know that his dad may have been at least verbally abusive to them. Not a nice guy to be around. So we could see some of his personality being shaped by his childhood. But we don't get a whole lot of that. Like, we're left to assume a lot about this guy, what made him the way he is. It may have been that he was just always obsessed with money. Like, maybe that's, you know, I've come across kids before that I've asked them, like, what do you want to do? Just whatever gets me rich, whatever makes me rich. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think that's the thing to focus on in life, but whatever, you know, whatever makes you happy. But see, Scrooge, he doesn't realize the lives that he's affecting throughout his search for more money, for more power, for more influence. And he doesn't realize what the toll that it's taking on his soul, you know, how miserable he's becoming until these ghosts show him. So here in this picture, he's looking at the girl that he could have been with, he could have married and had children with, had a good life with, that he left. That he, well, not let, she left him, but only because he was becoming so obsessed with money, with being rich and affluent, being comfortable, you know, because he kept putting off their wedding, saying, "Oh, we can't afford this," you know, like, I want to make the best life for you. Where it was really for him that he was doing it. He just didn't want to admit it, you know. She knew it, so she broke off the engagement. And this is, I don't know how many years later, the spirit's showing him this, her with her now husband, and they're actually discussing seeing him on the street, and they kind of laugh. So this was kind of a it's kind of a sad scene to think about. And the spirit also shows him some joy, though. See, before that, shows him his former boss, Fezziwig, throwing a party, you know, and Scrooge is there with Belle. That's the girl that he was engaged to. I think that's where they first meet, is at one of Fezziwig's parties. And so it's a jolly scene, you know, and Dickens is very good at describing this scene, how joyful, you know, how spirited it is. It's very much in the Christmas spirit, you know. Fezziwig spared no expense to throw the most lavish parties, and the spirit kind of goads Scrooge into defending Fezziwig. Says, why would he waste all this money on this party, like, you know, to bring like a couple hours of joy to all these people, you know. But Scrooge is like, well, that's what I loved about Fezziwig. Like, he was the kind of guy that, you know, he'd go out of his way to make people happy. And so right away, Scrooge is kind of seeing the merit of bringing joy to people, and doesn't quite realize it, you know. So then we get into the second spirit. Like, after Scrooge has seen all that, the second spirit comes at 2:00, and this is the Ghost of Christmas Present. He's very much like Santa Claus in the way that he's joyful, you know, and very much all about the Christmas spirit, about the feasting, about the laughing, the having fun, drinking, all that stuff. And he's decked out in this green robe with a wreath of holly on his head. He says, "Come in and know me better, man." Scrooge has no idea what he means by this, but he'll figure it out in time. What Scrooge has forgotten is the spirit of Christmas. That's very much what this spirit represents. He shows him Bob Cratchit's home life, and that's where we get to see Tiny Tim. Scrooge feels sorry for Tiny Tim, wishes he'd get better. He also feels for the Cratchits because they're living in poverty. They've got scraps for a Christmas dinner. And he also sees everybody on the street celebrating Christmas. All these people, even the people in the lower parts of London, are celebrating Christmas. So it kind of touches his heart seeing all this. At the end of the visit, the spirit shows him two children beneath his robe, Ignorance and Want. And the spirit tells him, these two will be the doom of the world. Enter the third spirit, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. So this, we can assume this is death. I mean, because of the things that this spirit shows us and the way the spirit appears, traditionally, death is a skeleton figure in a robe, a black robe, and that's exactly how this spirit appears. We can't see its face, in most of the adaptations anyway. In some of them, he appears with like a skeletal face, but in most versions, it's just like this. This spirit says nothing, only points to show Scrooge things. Scrooge asks it questions, but all it does is point. Shows him. Okay, first of all, before this scene, it shows him some men discussing a person's death and laughing about it, saying, "Oh, nobody's gonna show up, to the funeral. I might go if lunch is provided." And then he shows him this scene where there's people picking apart the man's belongings, like the scrub woman took the bedclothes off of the dead man's bed while he was still lying there. So this is kind of a horrible scene when you think about it. They picked apart this person's house while he was still lying there dead. And Scrooge is like, wow, why are you showing me all this? This is, oh my God. Not putting it together yet. And even when he sees people that he knows, like the people from the Royal Exchange, and then his scrub woman, he's still not putting it together. Not until the spirit shows him his grave. He shows him Tiny Tim's grave, and well, I don't. In some adaptations, he shows him Tiny Tim's grave, but really, what we get from the scene is the Cratchits crying over Tiny Tim and discussing Tiny Tim and how much he would want them to go on, to go on living, even in the midst of the disaster that was his death. Scrooge, when he sees his grave, he loses it. He's repentant. He's like, I will change my ways. I swear. I will live in the past, present, and the future. I will keep the spirit of Christmas alive in my heart forever. Just help me to sponge off the writing on this stone. The spirit says nothing again, but this is how the whole dreams. Was it a dream? Do we know if it was a dream or not? No. The author never makes it clear if it was a dream or not. But he wakes up in bed and realizes that he's still got a chance to make things right. He can still make others happy and make himself happy by doing that. He can still escape the fate of Jacob Marley. And this is why this story is so poignant, so, I don't know, it touches the hearts of a lot of people that read it or watch the movies. Because it's never too late to change. That's one of the main themes of this. It's never too late to change. You can always turn your life around. So at the end, he gets a boy to buy the prize turkey and bring it to the Cratchit's house for their dinner. His nephew, Fan's son, Fred, they were kind of estranged. Like, he didn't really want anything to do with them that much. Like, Fred would come around, but he'd say, "Bah humbug," That's another thing that's become iconic from this, is the phrase "bah humbug." It stems from Scrooge. But he tells Fred, I accept your invitation. I'm going to come to Christmas dinner with you. And so he's patching up his relationship with his last remaining relatives too by the end, and he's become closer to the Cratchits. He becomes like a second father to Tiny Tim, who does not die. Dickens points that out at the end. He does not die, and we can assume they live happily ever after. He becomes, I think Dickens says of all the people, he kept Christmas in his heart the most, kept it all the year round, and became as good a man, as good a father, a second father to Tiny Tim as the world ever knew. So in the end, we get a happy ending. Nobody's the worse for wear. It all wraps up very well, like with a nice red bow. And that's why this story has endured the way it has, because we get a character arc that's so perfect, I think, that, I don't know, it's one of those character arcs that's unequaled. You start off with this grumpy, curmudgeonly, hateful old man. Says, you'll see me in hell before I come to your Christmas. He tells Fred that at the beginning. Like, he basically says that, like I'll be dining in hell before I'll dine with you. Oh man. I'm sorry. I've been wrong. He sees the error of his ways. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. In the spirit of the holiday season, I just wanted to cover this book. And it's only fitting that it looks at books number 43. This was published in 1843. I did not realize that when I made the number. So that worked out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.